Okay, today's video about my Jeep TJ. Use it as a daily driver. I also take it off-road a lot. Works pretty well in both situations. Drives well. Got about 60,000 miles on it now, and I've had a few little electrical problems over the last couple of years, and I decided to go through and do a complete TJ tune-up. I'm going to replace all those sensors that cause all of the various check engine lights, and then you get those codes, and they're kind of a pain. So I'm going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to replace all of the sensors that generally feed into the computer and control the engine. Now you're probably watching this video because you may have seen one of these, but if you have a TJ, they're a little bit older. It's probably the time, a good opportunity to, when you have one of these, go through and change all these sensors out and kind of do what I'm doing, which is a really kind of equivalent to the old-fashioned tune-up, and get that thing running good. That's what my goal is to keep this thing on the road the way it should be. Okay, so at the same time that I'm upgrading my electrical system by adding the custom battery cables, I'm going to do a bunch of other little things. And basically you see a whole bunch of parts here, and they really represent all the engine management control stuff. And I figured, after 15 years it was time to go do a complete rebuild. Now if you had a new Jeep or just bought a TJ and you're like, hey, want it to run right, here's all the little things that go wrong. You got your fuel injectors. These are all your sensors: map sensor, throttle position sensor, temperature sensor for the manifold, crankshaft position sensor, camshaft synchronizer, camshaft position sensor. All those little things feed into the computer and tell it, when to fire the spark plugs. And so over here I have a new, I guess you'd call it the coil. It's the coil pack. It fits on in one piece. Now this stuff isn't necessarily all bad on mine, but I've spent years driving through mud and water, and I've kind of thought I would go ahead and replace all those sensors at once. Put a bunch of this dielectric grease on there so that I can make sure that it doesn't go bad when I get in water. Seal all the water out. And the only thing I'm not replacing here are the O2 sensors, which I did a while back when I had one go bad. So I'm going to kind of strip the Jeep down and show you guys kind of how I put all this stuff in at one time. And at the end of this, I'd have a really robust and reliable Jeep TJ I can drive every day and take to the trail with confidence. All right, so start changing all these sensors out. First, you got to take all the plugs off, and they can be a pain. I think you'll notice mine might be easier than yours because I've probably taken them off before.
Where you bought, George?
Okay, so essentially you can see down here there's 4 bolts. Throttle body comes right off. Basically you got connectors, and a connector over here. And then once you get that bad boy out of the way, you see you got more room to get at your fuel injectors. And these are much easier to change because they have all these little screws on them. We'll go through that to change those sensors out as part of our little project. And here's your fuel injectors. So we're going to end up pulling the wires off those. Special tool we'll need to get to disconnect this hose. We're going to pull that fuel rail off. I already pulled off a lot of crap in here. You can see the remnants of the old insulation that have crumbled away. So we're going to replace all that with that cool new stuff we bought. Okay, so just a quick tip. Taking off these injectors is a little bit of a pain. You have to pull this little red lever up. So you get under there, it just pulls straight up. And I try not to break them. Get under there, pop it, and these are just a little bit of a pain. You can see that one is stuck like hell. And they like to rotate around with the coil. You have to get in there and, oh, well, that one popped up and went all the way off. Then you got this little button here, and you got to push down and push up, and then it'll come off. All right, great video quality. So I've taken off the bolts that hold the rail on. There's 4 of them. One there, one there, one there, one over here. And I've taken off all these wires off the top of the fuel injectors. And I should be able to just kind of work that rail and pop it off. Before I do that, I gotta go get it downtown and get a special tool that pops this hose out. And then I'll take this fuel rail off and I'll be able to get in there and replace the injectors and put in all the new protective heat shielding and put all these new sensors in and then pop it back together. Really not that much to it. Okay, so when you're taking this off, the fuel rail, there's a little spring-loaded thing. You need this specialized tool. Fits over, pushes in. We're pushing and pushing. We didn't realize that until you push this towards the full fuel rail to release the pressure on that spring and then push this in, does it kind of pop in and allow this to pop out, and then your fuel rail's off. Make sure you unthread this and release the pressure first using that little Schrader valve right there. And when you're done with that, now I'm ready to go ahead and work and pull these fuel injectors out and put the new ones in. Okay, so we popped this bad boy out. You should notice that only these back two actually kept the seals on, so I'm gonna have to reach in there with a little hook and make sure I pull the O-rings out. Now the new ones, they have the O-rings already installed, so I'm gonna put those in here first. But I just wanted to show you that these, when they just pop out, don't leave those little O-rings in there. You'll never get the new ones in. Okay, putting dielectric grease on all these fittings. I'll be putting on the electrical as well. So right now I'm putting on the O-rings of the injectors. Keeps water out, gives you a good seal. It should help it pop in there a little easier, give it a little bit of lubrication. So when we pop it in, they don't come off. So do those 6 and move on. Good. Okay, so basically we popped this up. There's just 3 little spots. It just sits on these bolts. And then this little first insulating shield drops right in there. And I'll show you here in just a second the other insulating shields that'll go on around the fuel rail and the one that goes on the fuel injectors. And we are making good progress. Okay, so this is the fuel rail itself. And you can see this wraps around and velcros, and you have good insulation all around your fuel rail. You have to take all your fuel injectors off to get this on. Good, like I said, good time to replace the fuel injectors. In this case, I actually bought the 4-nozzle fuel injectors. Probably hard to see. Some people claim they give you a horsepower increase. I'm not going to buy that, but I will buy the fact that it's supposed to make it idle a lot better and give you a better atomization of the fuel. So we're going to give these a try and see how they work. So now I've put dielectric grease on the fittings and there. And you notice, man, things slide in actually pretty easy. Seems like they popped right in there. I've seen where that can be a real pain. I think it's yeah, super good idea to get a little dielectric grease. That popped in real easy. Now you notice I got this insulation, I got this insulation. I'm going to put these connectors on. I'm going to wrap these injectors with a little more insulation, bolt this stuff down, hook my fuel rail back up. Then I'll get on to changing all the sensors on my throttle body. Okay, now we're wrapping the injectors with a little more insulation. Takes a little bit of working it around there. I haven't put the bolts in yet. It gives a little bit of back and forth play to push that bad boy around there. You get it in there, tuck it in, and it just velcros in place. Try to keep that heat off those injectors. There we go. Oh, okay, yeah. This is the little insulating piece. Down here is one of the connectors. You know, they just slide on. That little red thing is open. You push them till you hear them click. You push that red down till it's up flush, and then you go around your wires underneath here. Get your little insulating blanket up and in there. Work it around. Wrap everything up nice and tight. Okay. So now, sensors on this throttle body. You know, if you want to upgrade to one of those larger throttle bodies, this would be the time to do it once you're taking all this stuff off. You just need an Allen wrench. This one I believe is your map sensor. These can be tight. Be careful with these little screws that go into your throttle body. Good news is throttle bodies aren't horribly expensive, but you know, neither are these sensors. So what I'm going to do is, once I get these sensors off and changed, I put these all in a bag and I carry them with me on the trail. And should something go wrong on the trail, I am covered. I have all kinds of little things that I can fix. Take this one off. It's got this little vacuum hose bend there. You don't want to ruin that. So here's my spare map sensor, and here's my new map sensor. A minute. This is my throttle position sensor. Same Allen wrench. This one can get you some. Any one of these, when they go wrong, can kind of make your Jeep run a little funky. So you take these bad boys off. You swap in the new ones. You have trail spares for all the little things that could go wrong. Rust inside there. I think I'm gonna. That little WD-40 before I put it back together. You can see not a whole lot to switching these bad boys out. WD on there, keep that rust from logging up in the aluminum. Might be a bad idea to put new ones on. So as you can see, I got one more sensor to go. I'll pull it off. These two use that. This one uses a little Torx bit. And be careful with these little tiny screws. They easy to strip out aluminum. Don't be taking them out with power tools or anything like that. Just hand tight's generally good enough. My gasket fortunately came off in one piece and is in good shape. So when I put that back on, let's just put those 4 bolts. I don't see any reason to put another gasket on there unless I thought it was leaking, which it is not. And I'm about done with this side of the Jeep. Then I'm going to put a bunch of dielectric grease on these fittings because we don't want water getting in there and shorting things out while I'm out having fun. And there are my 3 spares, which will be easy to carry. They don't take up much room. And then I will put the throttle body on and we'll see how this side of the tune-up goes. 4 coil injectors in there. We're running pretty good. Put all new sensors on. Throttle body, put the insulation wrap on there. Seems to be pretty decent. And then tomorrow, get the new distributor, all new battery cables, and a new coil pack. Okay, end of day 1. Put everything back together, put the air filter back on it. Go for a test drive. Idling really good, which is a little better than it was before. It didn't sound quite that good. So, seems to be idling good. That was sort of half the job. That's over on the driver's side of the compartment. We're just about done. Tomorrow we'll tackle the passenger side with a bunch of other stuff that you can do to your Jeep to kind of give it the ultimate tune-up. But yeah. So far so good. Drives great. Actually drives better than it did. Had a little more pep off the line. Very impressed with those kind of cheap off of Amazon 4-hole injectors. I don't know how they're going to hold up in the long run, but initial impressions are they're good. They idle really well. Lots of power off the, for a stock engine anyway. Lots of power off the throttle when you get on it. So good results so far. We'll give you guys the rest of it tomorrow.